most people in their journey of their breast cancer, they feel something. You know, they'd be in the shower or something, they'll feel a lump, and that's like a trigger to go and get checked. That's not how it worked for me.
Having never been to the doctor, I called a friend of mine. I said, you know, what doctor you go to? Like, recommend me to a doctor so I could go and check it out. And she did. She sent me to Jackie Sabga, who is incredible, incredible. And Jackie said she would put me on antibiotics, but she also would refer me for an ultrasound and mammogram.
I wanted to know, obviously, but I didn't want to add trauma to the experience by going through the public health system right now. Right. With COVID and everything, I wanted to be extra careful. And so I went there, did an ultrasound because I'm under 40, so I couldn't do a mammogram.
Wow.
Well, apparently that's the rule or something. So I went there, I did the ultrasound.
Just to reiterate that if you are not over 40, you're not allowed to, or you're not supposed to?
They don't recommend that you do a mammogram if you're under
age.
40 because it wouldn't pick up enough information for them to make a diagnosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was really just low energy, and I was not feeling good. And I thought, okay, I need a break. I need a complete detach from all responsibility. I'm going to take myself for a holiday to Barbados, which is one of my favorite destinations. I've got family that lives there, so I went on my own, without child, without husband, and decided to have a complete 7-day rest, which I did, which was absolutely wonderful. Never slept so much in years, and came back expecting to be renewed and rejuvenated, and that did not happen. Came back and I basically felt the same way, same just unusually low energy feeling all the time. And I just had this sense to myself like something is up. What is up with me? Right. You know, it was an inner voice.
Yeah.
I believe it was God as well telling me, all right, go get yourself checked.
Could you explain a little bit about the procedure? Like what exactly is a core?
Okay, so if you feel a lump in your breast, the chances are it could be a complex cyst. And if it is a cyst, great, it's filled with fluid, they could drain it, they could remove it, whatever. If it's a lump that's not a cyst, because they had to do another ultrasound before the biopsy to determine which one would work best. That one was a bit more solid, and they wouldn't be able to actually get any fluid from it or be able to tell conclusively what it is. So the core needle is a slightly bigger needle, and this is like millimeters in difference, right? But it actually kind of grabs tissue from the lump for them to be able to do a proper test.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Did like local anesthesia. They had to do a slight incision, and I have never been cut like in my life, right? So I'm like, when you say slight, like how slight we talking with this incision? They're like, no, it's really tiny. It's just, I'm like, okay. So they numbed the area, they did the cut, and the doctor is explaining to me, he's like, you know, you'll hear a loud sound, like a loud clicking sound. And if you ever experience anybody with diabetes and they have to test their blood sugar, when you puncture the skin, it's like a click.
Yes.
So it's that click multiplied by like 1,000 in my ear. So they're like clicking, and I'm like, okay, this wasn't so bad. And he's like, yeah, we need to do it 4 more times.
I mean, you don't go for an ultrasound and then have them send you for an instant mammogram without having a problem. And I knew it was cancer. And I said, yeah, I know. So just, you know, what to do? So he said, okay, you know, you need, because of how it looked, like it was scattered, like because it was breast and lymph node at that point. And he said, you needed to get a breast MRI as well as a full CT scan with contrast to just, you know, determine if there was spread. I said, all right. I mean, so I went for all those tests. That took like 2 weeks, 2 weeks of testing. And I got the results. But in the interim, I remember looking at myself in the shower and thinking, I feel fine. I feel healthy. Like I haven't felt this healthy in a long time, but there's this thing inside of me that could kill me. And it was weird looking down at my breast and going, I might not treated you really, really well in the last few years, but oh God, you know, no need for all of this. And it was horrifying. It was horrifying to think that, you know, there was this thing that could kill me. And I felt like a ticking time bomb because I didn't know the extent of the cancer. I didn't know the stage. I didn't know, you know, what kind it was. I didn't know how far it was.
Where are you at? Describe what's going through your emotions then.
Shock, disbelief. This really happening? Am I going to be able to beat this? I didn't want to. I wanted to protect my daughter. I wanted to not have her be scared. So as a mother, you just think of how can I protect? How can I survive, but how can I protect? She's only 7 years old.
Yeah.
So there was that initial time was just petrifying, but we also thought, the doctor did say right away, he said, you need surgery. Because he said, it is breast cancer, but gratefully, it was stage 1.
Right, okay.
Stage 1, so that they didn't need to do anything of trying to shrink because it was small enough that they just needed to take it out quickly. They said, as soon as you can, we have to operate and remove this. Right. 4th of February, I got the diagnosis. 12th of February, I had my surgery in Venezuela.
Was this year?
Yes.
Wow.
In Venezuela. Just before the lockdown happened.
Yes. Right. But that happened so quickly, Wendy. Like bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam.
So did you even really have time to process until you
I don't think
got,
so, no.
Yeah.
No.
He asked me if I had any questions. I said, well, I'm really just concerned now about next steps. What do we do? Like, I really don't have time to be sick. I would really like to keep pushing and not wallow too much. I leave room for my feelings and to feel them, but right now, I don't want you to hold my hand. I need you to tell me, what are we doing? What's the plan? What are all of my options? And then I could go home and make an informed decision. And one thing he said that stood out, and it was so strange, because he said, you know, you're the 3rd person under 40 that I've diagnosed today.
Wow.
So I'm like, 3 in one day? I'm like, why do you think that is? Like, what are we doing or not doing in this generation? And he said, I don't know. I used to walk to school every day and walk to and from, and we ate home-cooked meals and like all these things. And I'm just like, okay, so no more McDonald's chicken strips. No more chocolate, like, unless it's really dark.
And we driving everywhere.
And I'm driving everywhere,
Right.
so great, now I have to go back in the gym. All right, cool. When am I going to find the time to, you know, and so it's interesting that he had 3 women under 40. Like, that blows my mind, still, to this day. And while I always mentally prepared for this possibly happening, I didn't think it would happen before 40.
Right.
So I think that part kind of had me like, okay, cool. But then I wonder, how do you know to check and be paranoid as I was if you don't have a family history? Like, who's at home right now thinking, well, we don't have a history, so it's fine, and they're not checking. And by the time they do check, it's like stage 3 or whatever. I caught it early. Like, stage 1, it's small, cool. But there are people right now who they're not checking and they don't feel like they have to.
Correct. That's why it's so important to get screened, right?
Yeah.
So one of your intentions for speaking with She's Mercedes today and encouraging women is to get that message out, right?
Yes.
To get screened.
Definitely get screened early, check yourself constantly. You don't have to check every day, but you know, they say at least once a month you check and learn the difference. If you're checking regularly enough, you'll know what your breasts feel like at different times of the month, right? Because we have PMS and it changes, it becomes a little more dense or less or whatever. But if you're not doing your own due diligence and you don't know your body well enough, you'll never be able to tell when something feels weird until it's too late. So please check, everybody.
As soon as I got the diagnosis, it meant they kicked into high gear. Everybody just went into tell us what we could do, because I need to raise funds to buy one of the drugs that I need, right? And it's not cheap. Oh my God, cancer is so expensive. I mean, getting sick is expensive, but wow. And so they said, I mean, they didn't want to stress me out, so they actually formed their own sub-team with fundraising ideas and what they could do, and presented me with a plan. My brother set up a GoFundMe. My niece was very into me shaving my head. She's like, oh my God, yeah, you just need to wear eyeliner and you'll be fine. She's 7. So like, yeah, okay,
She
thanks.
sounds phenomenal.
But yeah, they kicked into high gear. So I mean, I actually live with my aunt now because it was a coincidence that I was redoing my roof at the same time. And I moved in with her and then got this cancer diagnosis. And she said, well, just stay because you're gonna have to do chemo and you're gonna feel like crap. So stay. So I've been by her for a couple months now. And I'll be there until like, you know, well into surgery at least. But yeah, they've been great. They've been great. And apart from them, I mean, I've had strangers come up to me and say, because they've read this story in the newspaper and then on Facebook, because I put it out. When I got the diagnosis, I put it out there publicly. I didn't want to give it life before. I knew for sure what it was. But once I heard it was cancer, I was like, well, all right then.
Speaking of putting it out there publicly, like the whole platform with She's Mercedes, it's about empowering women to be brave and to get their message out there. What went through your mind that you were like, I am just going to put it out there, I am going to be vulnerable, and what is my intention with putting it out there?
So at first I didn't want to, because my friends were like, you know, if you need to raise funds, you need to actually let people know what's going on. I was like, oh, I'm not ready for that, because I'm on the other side of a camera. This is all new to me. So, you know, being in the newspaper, like being public about it was weird. It seemed, I didn't want people to take it the wrong way. Like I didn't want them to think, well, oh, you know, it's another like hard luck story. But I'm glad I did, because a lot of people have reached out to me since and said, thank you for putting out your story. Thank you for saying, I have something under my arm. What did you do? I've had this lump in my breast. I don't know what to do. So it's been very helpful in that regard, because I actually have been able to reach people and help them the way people have helped me. So a neighbor of mine is a survivor, and she told me about a WhatsApp group that a doctor had created, Dr. Dalla Costa. And she asked me, she said, you know, whenever you're ready, I'll add you to the group. And I said, okay, sure. Because you don't have to participate, but it's actually really helpful to know that there are people who actually are going through it, have been through it, and are alive. It's a good inspirational touch point to have people you could say, okay, you had it 20 years ago and you're still here. Why would I die? You know, why would I be the one to not survive? So it's been extremely helpful to have that kind of support.
Yes.
Why is it today important for you to share your story, and what's the intention that you hope to get from sharing?
Yeah. My sole intention of this is to help one or many be aware of their bodies, be aware of their own bodies, and don't be afraid to get checked regularly. You should be checking your health, going for, you know, breast examinations once a year, going for gynecological examinations once a year. You know, I hear people say often, oh gosh, I just don't want to find out I don't want to find anything, I'm scared. I'm like, right, okay. And also, gosh, the money to spend on these, you know, very expensive exams, I'm like, okay, all right. Now having been through this, yes, it's scary to hear things, but it's much more scary to hear things in a more advanced stage.
Correct.
Right? Time is of the essence. If you find things early, you can nip it in the bud, you can get it. You know, it takes a fair amount of hardship and it's so difficult, but you can beat it. But if you procrastinate and you wait and you don't want to spend the money, well, I tell you, having cancer, you spend a lot more money than the test, okay? Depending on, you know, which avenue you go for treatment, it can be a very expensive process.
If somebody has cancer, what advice would you give them?
You go and you get the advice of the best doctor you can get advice from, and you find your treatment plan, and you go one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. They tell you what you need to do, you do what you need to do.
I think as women, we tend to go through life a little bit in a vacuum, especially when we're the ones kind of running the home or making the decisions or taking care of a parent, for example. And there is no reason for you or for me or for her to reach out and find a tribe, find some kind of sisterhood, find some kind of community and hold on to them. Within your own boundaries, of course, but hold on to your tribe and your people and love them as hard as possible, because they're going to love you back even harder, especially when times get a little tough and you feel like, God, what am I going to do? You forgot to tap into your tribe and you forgot to tap into your people. And when you remember that, you turn around and they're all standing there waiting and ready to help. And that's the best thing for me about community, especially as a woman, because it's easy to kind of just keep your head down and trudge through things and feel like you're going through it alone, but you're not. But you have to be willing to ask and reach out and extend a hand and then pay it forward.
So if you had to give advice to somebody who recently received a diagnosis, what 3 things would you say to them?
That you're stronger than you know. Don't ignore a problem thinking it would go away. Deal with it, because you have no choice. You will have to deal with it. So it's better to catch it sooner than later. And don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Love those.
This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I still got a lot of fight left in me.
Sorry.